welcome to the third in our series of On the Radar. It's our series in which we talk with Beauhurst subscribers to understand from them their perspectives in what they're seeing in the market, as well as to understand and hear from them how they're using the platform to grow or support their business activities. My name is Henri Whorwood. I'm your host for today. I'm also the head of research and consultancy at Beauhurst. So hopefully some of you will have seen the reports that we write on a fairly regular basis. Those are produced by my team. I'm very pleased to introduce Henri. So you've got two Henrys effectively on the call today from Puma Private Equity. Henri, do you want to introduce yourself and also tell us a bit about Puma?
Sure. Thanks, Henri. I'm Henri Songeur. I'm an investment manager at Puma Private Equity. We're a VCT fund manager based out of London and Manchester, and we invest between £2 and £10 million into broadly what we would term as Series A investment rounds, and we're fully sector generalists in terms of mandate, so which will be a relevant topic that we can discuss later.
Great, thanks very much. I'd like now to come on to talk a little bit about how you do use the Beauhurst platform.
We use the tool very much for understanding the market. So I mentioned earlier that we're sector generalists, which kind of means that we can invest in anything to a certain extent. So when we sit down as an investment team and decide what we should be targeting, we obviously need to kind of do deep dives into different sectors. We have to kind of put together certain lists of companies that we want to target, or at least types of characteristics of companies that we want to target. And then from there, we do a lot of research, in particular kind of sector research. So trying to understand a lot of different market dynamics, but key regulatory drivers, key technological drivers, but also the kind of competitive horizon. And I think that's where Beauhurst really comes into play in terms of understanding, I guess, key metrics behind some of the competitors.
Mm-hmm. And might that lead into when you're sort of, say you're prospecting a deal at a sort of closer level, on Beauhurst, there's lots of data around the valuations of various companies that have raised and things like that. Does that factor into your sort of surfacing comps?
Exactly right. So where we kind of get to is we kind of find a sector, do a deep dive, understand, make a decision on whether we like it, look for a competitive horizon with the help of Beauhurst, and then from there start to take a view. Obviously, we look at the operational qualities of each one of those competitors, but we also are able to look, and this is where Beauhurst really comes into play, we're able to look at things like valuation, things like the cap table. Obviously, Beauhurst takes its data directly from the source, so the kind of SH01 submissions. So that's a very useful tool for us to have, to be able to kind of look at a company at a stage of evolution and try and understand, what's the typical funding that they'll have gone through, what's the typical valuation that they'll have gone through, what might a company need to take on to be able to get to a particular stage. All of these data points are kind of key in our understanding of essentially our investment thesis and how we can kind of project where the company might come to in the future over the next 3 to 5 years.
Great, and that's a use case that sort of where, depending on what transaction you're looking at, you'll go in and use the sort of advanced search and find the relevant companies. Obviously, you can set up a lot of those searches to send you alerts effectively if you've got a collection of companies you're interested in or a collection of funds. So I'd be interested to hear whether monitoring what your sort of colleagues in the market, if you like, are up to, and how you might use that functionality.
Yeah, I wonder if you've been reading my notes here. But exactly right. So the collections functionality is really useful on a number of different facets. I've got a couple of automated notifications that come into my inbox every Monday. One is specifically on the VCT market. So I mentioned we're a VCT fund. It's really of interest to us to understand if we're seeing all of the market, all of the opportunities in the market, shall I say? And one of the best proxies for us to understand that is to analyze what our peers are doing. So there's a very quick and easy solution to figuring that out is by having an automated notification telling me which VCT funds have made an investment in that week. So that's on the kind of our own competitive level. And then what we also do is we keep track on, so for example, I mentioned sector deep dives. We've got, I often put together collections on a particular sector, and then the automated email will kind of give me on a scheduled basis insight into that, into the transactions in that market, which is super useful. And then the third piece where we would kind of use that is also on lead tracking itself. So we obviously have our own internal CRM where we track all of the companies that we've spoken to over the last 5 or so years. And if we mark those as a kind of future prospect, then we can also kind of monitor what their activities are in the market, or whenever Beauhurst picks up a piece of data. So it's that's a really useful tool. That's a bit like Google Alerts, but specific to what we do.
And on those alerts, you can set which day the email alerts arrive, and which things about the company or the fund or the transaction, whatever the base model of your collection is, you can set which things you get alerted about in your emails. Carrying on the theme of automated sort of alerts and things like that, we do also have an API that can provide sort of live updates, or however often you set it, to pull the data into CRMs and similar tools to stay up to date on that basis. I'd like also to understand a little bit more about, in terms of the due diligence. Say you're looking at a particular lead that comes through on a company's on a company you're working with. What are the data points that are sort of on a profile? Because there's lots of different data points and lots of different tabs. Which are the ones that are sort of most valuable to you?
I mean, the key data points that we look at are the amount fundraised, the valuation that it's been fundraised at over the different rounds. So that's absolutely critical. We have a look at obviously the Beauhurst platform pulls kind of stat accounts, which unfortunately for us, we deal in very small companies. So it's not always kind of very elaborate in terms of what they give away in their understanding, but there's also a lot of kind of balance sheet information in those stat accounts, which can be very useful for us to kind of understand the kind of current performance of the company. Further to that, we sometimes use the descriptive data that is included on a Beauhurst profile to find comparables in the market. So obviously part of our job is to not only to look at what past valuations have been, but try and figure out what a valuation might look like for our own investment round. And at that point, it becomes a difficult exercise to take on if you don't have any data of kind of companies that are either similar size in a similar market that are doing a similar thing. So Beauhurst can be very helpful on the kind of descriptive qualities or descriptive data points that you provide. And then finally, a kind of an interesting one for us as well is the people kind of tab on the platform, where you're able to, I mean, this is more a time saver than anything else, because obviously that information is available on other platforms such as LinkedIn. But what's really useful is you can immediately click onto a company, click onto the people, and then go straight to the profiles of their management team and a lot of their employees, and often it is often the case, which just it enables us to kind of click in and out of profiles and understand exactly what types of individuals are within this company, and in particular what their track records are and kind of what experience they've had in the past. So yeah, all of those kind of data points are, it's a question of, I think I'm right in saying that pretty much, maybe 80% of the data that's on Beauhurst is open to the public on different various platforms. The real quality of the tool is that I'm able to sit there, log on, and click through all of these different tabs that are populated with data from different sources by Beauhurst.
Yeah, for us, the task is often around sort of structuring the joins between various different data points and auditing them for their quality. So on the people profiles, as you mentioned, you can click through and see wherever else they might have shareholdings, wherever else they might have employment positions, wherever else they might have directorships, which especially for some of these people who are plugged into more than one company is quite important to know. Just coming back to your point about finding similar companies, do you use the similar companies functionality for that?
So in all honesty, it depends on the sector. I think some sectors are very easy to define using certain buzzwords, using certain characteristics. And then some others are a little bit more ethereal. We're often dealing in kind of new disruptive technology, and it becomes a bit more of a kind of, I guess, thought exercise of kind of how do you come up with a way to harness the Beauhurst search platform so that you can find what you're looking for. So sometimes similar companies doesn't work perfectly for us, but we have used it on a number of occasions in the past where it gives you direct competitors or direct comparable companies. So it can be quite a useful tool, yeah.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Very much for sharing that. I wonder if I can ask sort of one last cheeky question of you, for the sake of the people on the call who are maybe weighing up getting a subscription to Beauhurst. What's the one real value add if you could summarize it? Are you saving time?
Yeah, so to an extent. There are two things. One, we're obviously approached by a number of competitors just on an ongoing basis. And two, we often see early stage companies that are trying to break through with similar models. Not a huge number, but there are a couple that have come to us for investment in the past. Really interesting to get the opportunity to kind of delve into their model and how they put their data together, etc. So I have a pretty good understanding of the competitive horizon. The reason that, and I've been using Beauhurst for 7 odd years now, and brought them over to Puma from my previous company because I enjoyed the platform. The key reason for me is time saving. As I said earlier, this information does tend to be public, and you probably would be able to get a lot of it through your own kind of Google researches, etc. But the real key to this is the standardized format in which it's presented, and the aggregation of a number of different sources, which allow me to basically put together a process for our team of how you analyze a company. So that when you find a new opportunity, a new company, you go onto Beauhurst and you check, A, B, and C, and then from there you kind of continue your research. So it's enabled us to standardize our analytical process, but it's also enabled us to bring on new members of the team and be able to kind of share a standardized process with them and get them up to bit and kind of ramped up to speed with how we look at companies in a quick and efficient manner. So that's probably the best thing about it.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for your candor in sharing that. And that's taken us to the top of the hour. So thank you for your time. As ever, pleasure chatting with you, Henri. And that's all we've got time for today.